Okay, what's your name?
Jenny Stevens.
And on a scale of... Oh, how old are you?
43.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your technological proficiency?
4.
And how many hours a week do you spend with computers?
About 40 hours a week.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your artistic proficiency?
3.
How often do you draw?
About once a year.
Have you used VR before this time?
No.
So the first VR experiment, how long ago was it that you experienced it?
About 3 months ago.
And how long did you spend in the VR?
About half an hour.
So what did you do when you were in there?
Use the different tools, so drawing and painting tools, the reflection tool, and the space drawing. So pulled down the moon and was kind of inhabiting space.
And how did it feel?
It felt very real, very quickly. So with the moon stayed with me in particular because you could make it bigger, walk around it, sort of see underneath it, and I think because of the 3D-ness of it and the fact that you could actually walk around it, it just felt like reality. Like an alternative reality, but definitely a reality.
Mm. Did you feel like you achieved anything?
I feel like my mind expanded, but I don't feel like I achieved anything other than having a completely new experience.
Are there any memorable moments?
Reflection was amazing because you could draw something and then you could step to the other side of the mirror, like Alice in Wonderland, and you're on the other side looking back at where you were a minute ago, and that was incredible. And the whole space program was amazing. You look down, there's nothing under your feet. You know, you can pull down the moon, make it huge, push it out of the way. That was very memorable. Also, there was one game I was playing where you had to move from one room to another, so I was trying to get from... There was something on the other side of a grate that I was trying to get to, and I was actually up against the fireplace in the room I was in, and even though I knew that I was against a real fireplace, I was still trying to just get through. I thought if I can just go a little bit further, I can get to the other side, and, you know, it felt more real than the real room I was in.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's so immersive. It's so... Even though I could hear people talking around me in the real world, it felt more real than the real world.
Was it like any other activity?
No.
There's nothing... What's the closest thing that you've done before that you could compare it to?
I don't think there's anything like it. It was completely... I think the closest thing is probably an immersive art experience, maybe, in a gallery, but that's the only
Why
thing.
did you choose that as like why? What parallels did you draw with that? What makes you think of that?
Because you forget where you are. Even though you know that it's not real, it starts to feel more real than reality.
How do you explain it to somebody else?
I've tried to describe the process and then the sensations and how you feel like it's more real than the real world, but you just get blank looks unless people have actually experienced it. They can't comprehend that sensation at all. It seems to be something that you can't translate to somebody else unless they've done it.
Have you thought of it since?
Yeah, a lot. For the first, I didn't want to leave, but I didn't want to take it off. And then for a couple of days after that, I kept going back to that experience, and I just wanted that to be where I was. And it stayed with me a lot. I've thought about it quite a lot.
So you remembered it as how was it remembered in your mind? How did you remember it?
Initially, it was like I wanted to get back to that place. It was like a place I'd been and I wanted to go back there. Now it feels more like an experience I had. It's kind of fading, like holiday memories fade over time and becomes more of a memory. But for a good couple of weeks afterwards, it was like I wanted to go back there. I hadn't finished.
So, final question. Would you say it's real or unreal, in your opinion?
Very real.
Very real.
Very real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I started with the mirror because that's my favourite thing. And I just wanted to play around with some different textures. When I found the smoke texture, I thought I can make smoke and then walk through it and come out on the other side, which was strange, especially when you're on the other side of the mirror and the smoke's there where you left it and you've walked through it. So I was just making the smoke denser now so that I could still walk through it and be on the other side. Still just playing around with different textures. At this point I just wanted to make as much mess as I could and then kind of inhabit it and pass through it. But watching it like this is not my experience of it. My experience was I was there, and now I'm just watching it on a screen. It's not the same. So again, different textures. And then I decided I'd make some bars so it would be like a prison, and then I could go through and break out and be on the other side. But I forgot that because it was a mirror, the bars would also be on the other side of the mirror. I thought I'd pass through and there'd be nothing there. And it kind of surprised me that when I came back on the other side, the bars were there as well. And here I was just trying to make them like a denser set of bars so they took up more space. I think at this point I'd forgotten I had the straight edge tool on, so I was just going to create a lot of mess with fire. This was very disconcerting. I pressed the teleport button and I was no longer in the same space, but I couldn't find my way back to it. So I knew that there was the mirrored space with all the smoke and mess I'd created, but I couldn't find my way back because I didn't really understand where I teleported to or how to get back.
5 minutes.
And that felt very, very strange. I just wanted to be back in my space that I'd just made, and I was just nowhere. That's why I took the teleport tool off, because I couldn't find my way back. I was trying to get back to my mirrored space, but I still wasn't quite sure where it was. Didn't really know what that was going to do, but didn't particularly like it, so got rid of it. This one I just wanted it all to be connected, and then I decided I'd make some stairs, but they were very 2D, so I think I just moved on to something else then and got rid of it. think as I was making the stairs, I was thinking I might be able to walk up them, but when I'd drawn it, I realised that obviously that couldn't happen. And here I was just trying to walk down the middle of the mirror line. So I found the space program. Had a bit of trouble with the technology. All I wanted to do was make the moon bigger and move it around, but I couldn't quite remember how to do that and how to get rid of the grid that I had on there.
10 minutes.
I was getting quite annoyed because I knew time was ticking and I'd have to come out soon, and I just really wanted to play with it. So this is me just trying to work the technology. It's like watching this has nothing to do with what I was just doing. It's just, it just looks rubbish and fake. And I was in that space with that moon in front of me. And now it's just flat. And I can see the menus. It didn't feel like it was this long that I was messing around trying to do what I wanted to do with it. It felt much shorter than that.
Well, how do I stop it?
What are you trying to do?
I want to turn off all these things and just play with the moon.
The way you, if you press the two buttons on the other side.
Then I remembered when I
looked
looked down there'd be nothing underneath my feet, just
press both
space.
buttons on the bottom of the controllers.
I'm still getting bubbles and I can't get rid of the menu.
And I wanted to get back
The
to
menu's
that.
always there. Press the two buttons on the bottom of the controller at the same time, and pull your hands. No, on the bottom of the controller.
I'm surprised how long this is
Yeah,
that,
now pull them apart.
that I couldn't work it for. It felt like a minute or 2 minutes maybe, but it's actually a really long time.
Erase them.
No, but they keep coming when I press the trigger.
Not the triggers. You know the like pad buttons on the controller. Like where your little finger is. Those buttons.
On the side.
Yeah. Yeah. If you,
I was very happy when I worked it out. I really like the sensation of having this huge moon in front of me and above me, and all the bubbles floating past. When I was moving it around, I don't really remember seeing the controllers, although I know they were there because that's how I was controlling it. But I don't remember that. So at this point I just wanted to move it around, walk around it, walk underneath it. I was just enjoying being in that space. I didn't particularly want to do anything else, just hang out there. I think at this point I thought I'd try a different program, so I tried the night sky option, but I was instantly bored with that because there was nothing in it. I clicked on this one and expected it to be a dress form that was about the same size as I was, and there was this huge structure in front of me, completely out of scale to what I'd expect. So the first thing I wanted to do was just shrink it down. What I didn't realise is that the floor would go down as well, and the whole thing was just disappearing beneath my feet, and that was a very strange sensation. I wanted it just on a level with me, the right size. Then I decided I'd draw a dress on it, although it didn't work so well. I was trying to draw around it and I realised I could just walk around it and that would work much better. I almost forgot it was 3D. It didn't have a head, so I gave it a face. Again, when I clicked the snowman, I thought it would be small, and it was enormous in front of me. What was really weird was this: as I made it bigger, the floor was also coming up, so I felt like I couldn't see my feet when I looked down, and I felt like I was up to my waist in snow. It's very strange. And that was the end.
Right.
It's so cool.
How long ago did you do the second VR experiment?
About 15 minutes ago.
And how long did you spend in there?
About 15 minutes.
What did you do?
I played with the programs. I initially put the mirror program on and then played with different textures within the mirror, so that I could use smoke, make bars, walk in and out of it. And I also went into the space program and moved the moon around and walked around it, and also used the dress form and the snowman program as well.
How did it feel?
It felt nice to be back in a space program, like it was somewhere I'd been before and I'd come back. The snowman one was quite strange because as I was making the snowman bigger, the floor was coming up, so I felt like I was buried in snow because I couldn't see my feet and everything was at the level of my waist. It's a very weird sensation.
Do you feel you achieved anything?
No, it's just like I continued the experience I had last time, and it was just nice to be back there. It's like going back somewhere you've been before that you wanted to revisit.
Any memorable moments?
The snow was very memorable because it did feel like the floor had gone. And even when you look down and you can't see the floor, at this point it was level with my waist, so it was like I was buried. But I had no physical sensation, it was all like a mental sensation. That was quite memorable.
So, explain the space that you constructed.
So several spaces. The first one was just a mirror, so it felt very 2D in as much as it was either side of a mirror rather than being kind of a big 3D physical space. But I forgot that if you do something on one side of the mirror, it will be there on the other side. So that surprised me, and I had to kind of readjust to that. I felt like I wanted to explore further within that space, but I could see the edges of the room. And even though I kind of felt like they weren't there anymore, I was backing up against things, so I knew that I was at the edge of the actual room, which took me out of the programme, so I very quickly got back into the middle. So I didn't really construct a single space, it was more kind of playing with it, but I didn't really like what I'd done, so I kept deleting stuff.
Did you have that awareness of the actual room before, like last time you used it?
Yeah, but again, only when I was kind of banging into things. Even though you can see the edges of the room, it didn't feel like that was the edge. I felt like I could go further than that. But then you find yourself hitting against something.
How does that feel,
world.
that moment?
It's annoying. It's like that real world is impinging on my experience. And I find it very frustrating.
Okay. Why did you construct the space that you chose to construct?
I really like the concept of the mirror, because in the real world the mirrors are there's reflections but you can't go to the other side of it, so I like the fact that you can inhabit both sides of that.
So do you see the mirror as part of your space?
Yeah, the mirror was there, but it was something I could just pass through.
But did you think of it as part of your construction, or, for example, was it something that was part of the space, or was it something you used to create the space? In your experiential opinion,
it was part of the space. It was there when I got there. I put it there, and it was there.
You said at first, when you were just watching it again, you said that you wanted to make as much mess as you could and inhabit it. Why did you say that? Why was that your...
Because there's so many... It wasn't my initial idea, but there's so many colours and textures, and it was like, how much can I make that I can then just kind of pass through, see it from a distance, walk through it, and that's the kind of thing you can't do in the real world, but you can do in that space.
And you're also talking about the prison. You're saying that you wanted to make a prison and then break out of the prison.
Yeah.
But then you were surprised by the bars on the other side of the mirror.
I forgot it was a mirror. So it was like I was going to draw the bars on one side, walk through, get to the other side of the mirror, and I'd be free, but it's a mirror, so they were still there.
So what you were constructing was more... the walking through the bars was the reason why you made the bars.
Yeah, I made the bars so I could pass through them and be free on the other side. But
So
I forgot they'd be there for me.
So it was more than just drawing something. It was about experiencing it as well?
Yeah, I was drawing things that I could then experience.
Okay. You were talking about the teleportation when you kind of went off. You said it was quite disconcerting.
It was very disconcerting because
Why?
I was quite happy in my mirrored space, so I was creating things, and I thought, I'll just press this teleport, see what happens. And all of a sudden I was just in like blank space, and I didn't know where my mirrored space was, and I didn't know how to get back to it, and I sort of looked around and tried to teleport in different directions, and there just seemed to be no way back, and I felt a little bit lost, and I didn't really know how to get back there, but I wanted to be back there.
So you felt like you were in a different space?
Completely different space. And
Where
the only
were you?
way, nowhere. I'd teleported to a blank space, and I wanted to be back in the space I created. And the only way I could think to get rid of it was to press a teleport button and start again. Although when I did that, I still wasn't in the mirrored space, and I had to recreate that. And then I felt like, that's okay, I was back where I wanted to be.
You're also talking about going back to your space. So do you feel...
Yeah, I made that. That was my space. I made it. Yeah.
You felt comfortable there?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. And I could do anything I wanted with it.
Which you couldn't in the other space that you teleported to.
But I felt like that wasn't my space. I'd gone somewhere that... Not I wasn't supposed to be, but I didn't really want to be. I wanted to be back. Even though I could have just created it, it didn't really feel like that.
Are you talking about that you tried to draw the stairs at one point in time?
Yeah.
And you said you thought you could walk up them?
Yeah.
And then you realised that you couldn't walk up them?
Yeah.
How was that realisation? How would you describe that feeling?
It's weird because the reason I felt like I couldn't walk up them is because they were completely 2D. Not that they're not real, but they were completely 2D stairs, and as I kind of had finished drawing them and looked at them from the side, I realised they were just a single line, so how could I possibly walk up those?
Okay.
And it wasn't that they're not really stairs. I hadn't even got to that stage yet.
It's just that they
It's
were
just
2D.
that they were 2D and I hadn't actually drawn a proper staircase. Which I could have done, but I didn't want to waste my time doing that.
When you were watching the video, you
Mhm.
said it has nothing to do with what I was doing. It looks fake. I was in the space. So how would you describe the difference in experience of using the VR to watching the image of the VR?
They're completely different things. So watching it is like just watching a flat video of something that bears a resemblance to what I did, but it's in no way the same thing, because where I was completely 3D and I could move around it and look at it. But this was just a flat thing on a screen that was happening that I couldn't interact with. It's like a completely different thing.
Is there anything you could compare those two different experiences to, like another experience that you've had?
I guess in a way, a bit like the difference between cinema or even watching TV at home and then going to see a play. It's that kind of, especially a play where there's a bit of interaction and you're kind of part of what's happening. That compared to maybe watching that play on TV.
So it still feels constructed, or because a play is still not, it's still a step removed from reality. You're not on stage.
No, but
So you still feel
a
a
very
level of-
interactive play. So take the Globe, for example, where they're popping up behind you and kind of, you know, getting audience participation and they're moving all around you and you don't really know where they're going to come from. You feel like you're kind of in that space, part of it.
But still separated from it somehow. It's an interesting
It's the
metaphor to
closest
use.
analogy. It's not good enough because it's more separate than that. It felt more separate than that.
Okay.
But that's the closest thing I can think of.
And then you're saying that when you put the when you brought the dress form in, you said it's like a huge structure
Yeah,
that was like unexpected.
yeah.
So did you? How? What was your perception of that object? Was it a dress form that was huge, or did it become something else? Or
It was kind of something else. It was like, that's not what a dress form should look like. A dress form should be about the size of a normal person. So the first thing I wanted to do was just bring it back down to where I thought it should be.
so you're still aware of what it should be?
Yes.
Okay.
I had that expectation before I clicked on it, and I was like, no, that's not right. It should be about the same size as me.
And then you also said, so you had an awareness of your own size,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
even in the virtual world.
Yeah.
And you said when you were drawing, I think it was when you were drawing on the dress,
Mhm.
then you said you almost forgot that it was 3D.
Yeah, I was trying to draw around the dress from where I was standing, and it wasn't really working. And then I was like, I can just walk around it.
But that's a little bit strange considering how you said how immersed and three-dimensional you found the moon to be, like an
Yeah.
object in your hands
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then when you're drawing around this object, you kind of, it flattened in your mind.
Yeah.
Can you think of a reason why that difference may exist in experience between those two objects?
I think it was a strange object because in terms of the moon, it took on kind of different properties as it got bigger and smaller, but it was still like this amazing moon that you recognise, whereas the dress form was like, it should only be one size, and I don't know, it just felt a bit flat. I don't really know why. I didn't really kind of have a reaction to it, so it just wasn't really involved with it, which kind of I think made me forget that I could move around it. Also, the space program is, when you've got the moon, you've also got all the space around you and above you and underneath it, and as soon as you look around you can see that, whereas this is just an object in front of you and there's nothing else in the space.
Last question, is it real or is it unreal?
It's completely real.
Completely real.
Hyper real.
Hyper real. Any other last things you want to say, or is that all good? Said everything you wanted to?
It's all good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.